This Filmmaker IQ lesson is sponsored by Ikan, award-winning designer, manufacturer, and distributor of professional video, film, and broadcast production equipment, and by Blackmagic Design, creating the world's highest quality solutions for feature film, post-production, and television broadcast industries.
Hi, welcome to FilmmakerIQ.com. I'm John Hess, and today we'll cover the basics of color in modern digital filmmaking and some of the things you need to think about as you consider how to color your productions. There is a place in my heart for black and white photography, but black and white, as beautiful and nuanced as it can be, is a world unto itself. Color to me is a much more versatile and, when used correctly, a much more evocative tool. I'll take, for instance, the 1999 film The Matrix, directed by Andy and Lana Wachowski.
This is your last chance. After this, there is no turning back. You take the blue pill, the story ends. You wake up in your bed and believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill, you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. Remember, all I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
Notice the subtle use of color as a visual cue for location. When Neo and Morpheus talk inside the Matrix, there's a sickly green cast of everything, reminiscent of those old green monochrome computer monitors that folks of a certain age are familiar with. When out of the Matrix, the colors are more natural. Compare that to this opening scene from Sam Mendes' American Beauty, also from 1999.
I love your tie, that color.
I just love your roses. How do you get them to flourish like this?
Well, I'll tell you. Eggshells and Miracle-Gro.
I've never heard of that.
Man,
It's a combination.
I get exhausted just watching her. She wasn't always like this. She used to be happy. We used to be happy.
Mendes relies very much on a strong red, white, and blue color palette to underline the idealized facade of Lester Burnham's suburban family. Even the folders Lester drops in this opening scene are red and blue, a deliberate continuation of the chromatic theme. Compare these bold primary color schemes to the earthly tones of Jean-Pierre Jeunet's 2001 film, Amélie.
Amélie? Amélie? Amélie?
Jeunet uses a rich, warm palette of greens, yellows, and reds, a signature color palette of his that gives his films sort of a grotesque yet magical warmth to them. Blue is used sparingly, and when it is, it's a bold contrast to these established earthly tones. Now, these three films coming out in just a few years between them represent a small part of the creative use of color filmmakers began employing coming out of the 1990s and going into the new millennium. The movies that we just looked at were all shot on celluloid film. It's only very recently that digital camera systems have started to reach the level where they can emulate the look of film, though that debate is still open among the purists. But to this filmmaker, digital acquisition represents freedom, the likes of which we have never seen before. So let's start out by asking, how do digital cameras capture color? The answer is actually very similar to the way that color film captures color, by breaking down and recording light as three primary colors: red, green, and blue. But that's sort of where the similarity ends. And I don't want to get too technical here, so we'll just cover the essentials. In earlier digital camera systems, professional cameras used specially designed prisms that split light into red, green, and blue onto three different sensors, a digital analog of the Technicolor 3-strip process. But as sensors grew from the 1/3 or 2/3 inch chips to 35mm film size chips and beyond, manufacturers started using a single chip, using a color filter array to assign different color channel duties to individual pixels. A common color arrangement is called a Bayer pattern. Now look closely at the pattern of red, green, and blue pixels. Notice how there are twice as many green photosites as there are red and blue. And even though the sensor advertises a particular resolution, the Bayer pattern means there's actually half of those pixels are dedicated to capturing green, a quarter of those pixels capturing red, and a quarter capturing blue. Now, before you feel like your eyes are being cheated of color data, relax. Now, these are systems not only designed, but modeled after our own biological limitations. Our eyes are just not as sensitive to color as they are to changes in brightness or luminosity. Because of this biological quirk, engineers designed digital cameras to deliver much more resolution in black and white luminosity, using the green pixels photosites to serve not only for the green channel, but to help create the luminosity channel. So as the raw data comes off of the sensor, the digital camera uses mathematical algorithms to interpolate the missing pixels in each of the color channels and the luminance channel, and then combines the red, green, and blue color channels into what's called a CB/CR color space. That color space can be further compressed for storage in a process called chroma subsampling, which is the process of reducing the color resolution while keeping the luminance resolution the same. Now, for watching back video, compression is not a terrible thing. Perception of resolution is not a simple numbers game. More pixels doesn't necessarily mean a better image, as things like motion can dramatically affect our ability to sense fine details. But from a production standpoint, compressing color data leads to less flexibility when color correcting and grading in post-productions. Now, consumer cameras and DSLRs use what's called an 8-bit 420 chroma subsampling, which can break when heavily color graded because there really isn't that much color data available. The 8-bit part refers to the number of possible levels in each of the color channels. 8-bit is 2 to the 8th power for 256 possible levels of color in each color channel. 8-bit is fine for playback. You're watching this video right now in 8-bit color. Now, compare this to a camera like the Blackmagic Cinema camera. The Cinema camera can record a much more robust 422 10-bit compressed file in either ProRes or DNx HD codec. 10-bit means 2 to the 10th power. That's 4 times as many as 8-bit, for a total of 1,024 levels of color in each channel. And 422 has twice the color resolution of 420 and is considered robust enough to stand up to most professional needs. Further up the quality line, the Blackmagic Cinema camera is even capable of 12-bit RAW files. 12-bit meaning 2 to the 12th power for 4,096 levels of color in each channel, and RAW meaning the data is straight off the sensor before interpolation or any of that mathematical mumbo-jumbo. Of course, when you shoot RAW, you're going to pay dearly in terms of storage space because it just eats up storage. Now, before we move on from this incredibly dry technical overview of color and digital cameras, we need to talk a little about color space. Digital video uses a color space called Rec. 709, an HD TV color space standard that was first approved in 1990. Rec. 709 is a linear color space and is fine for your final output, but camera sensors have now exceeded the dynamic range of Rec. 709. So what's the solution? We'll use a flatter logarithmic curve to represent the data, a color space commonly called log. There are many flavors of log color, but they all function essentially the same way. They flatten the curve which the information is captured on the camera. This encodes the extra details that would normally fall outside of the dynamic range of the Rec. 709. When viewed back on a Rec. 709 monitor, log images will look flat and washed out. But you gain the flexibility of recovering details in the shadows and the highlights in post-production. Now here we're comparing the video mode Rec. 709 and the log-like film mode of the Blackmagic Cinema camera. Now when we correct the log colored image, we can recover much more details out of those blown out windows. Technology and filmmaking are intrinsically tied together, but enough is enough. Let's talk about the aesthetics of color. No understanding of color in film can be complete without a real solid grounding in the basic tenets of color theory. We'll start with the RGB additive color wheel. This color wheel is a little different from the color wheels you find in art stores, but this is one used in color suites. Our three primary colors are red, green, and blue, arranged in an equilateral triangle along the edge of the circle. The colors that bridge the arc between the primary colors are made by combining the two primary colors together. The area inside the color wheel is made of colors that are created when adding the third primary color into the mix. When all three primary colors are combined equally and fully, they create white. Now this is an additive system. Right away we can see the most important color relationship, opposite colors, also called complementary colors. Drawing a line from a primary color through the middle of the circle, we find that the opposite of red is cyan. The opposite of green is magenta, and the opposite of blue is yellow. Complementary colors, when placed next to each other, create the strongest amount of color contrast. But that's not the only common color relationship scheme. Triadic colors are three colors that are equally spaced on the color wheel. Triadic colors create the widest sense of color variation. Tetradic uses four colors evenly spaced around the color wheel. Similar to triadic are split complementary, which pulls colors from each side of a complementary color, but doesn't give us as wide a sense as triadic. And the least color contrast, most harmonious color combinations are called analogous colors, which are colors that lie next to each other along the color wheel. So many tutorials on the internet regarding color focus primarily on the process of color grading from a post-production standpoint. Perhaps with things like log, technology has been shifting us toward making color decisions later in the filmmaking process. But I think this really misses the point. Having good color in your coloring suite begins at the art direction stage. In preparing a demo for this lesson, I wanted to recreate the famous scene from Stanley Kubrick's Lolita, but put my own spin on it by fleshing it out in glorious color. Because I wanted to emphasize the range of colors, I went with a tetradic color scheme using blue, green, red, and yellow as my dominant colors, shooting indoors in a studio to create an artificial yet really bold color look that's similar to the Technicolor look of films from the past. Now for the set, I purchased recycled artificial turf pulled from USC and sold by a local dealer. Unfortunately, that stuff is chock full of little tiny rubber pellets which get all over the place. I mean all over the place. I've got mountains of them in the trash can in the back. I flushed out the set with green fake plants from the Salvation Army thrift shop and hung a blue pattern muslin for a backdrop. Now, keep my beautiful model Victoria Patton from getting covered in black rubber gunk, I bought a blue and white striped beach towel, which serves to add some blue tones to the bottom of the frame. For costume, we went with white and red stripes because I adore stripes. And a $3 novelty heart-shaped glasses that I purchased on Amazon as a nod to Kubrick's original. Lighting-wise, I used Ikan's IDMX 1500B to light the blue backdrop, and two Ikan IB1000 LEDs to serve as fills for my model's face and body. I placed a single 2K with a color temperature blue gel to blast my talent with a strong backlight. Now, since I knew I was going to be shooting photos as well using strobe lights, I chose to set all my fixtures to 5600K. Now, being able to dial in color temperature is another great feature of these Ikan LED fixtures. Using the Blackmagic Cinema camera, I shot the scene in an uncompressed 12-bit RAW mode using Sigma 12 to 24mm and Nikon 50mm lenses. Working with raw files adds an extra step in the post-production process, but luckily DaVinci Resolve makes the process as painless as possible. Resolve is a phenomenal color tool used to color lots of well-known projects, and the free light version Blackmagic has available is simply one of the most powerful free programs out there and definitely worth checking out. But the folks at Blackmagic have added a lot of workflow tools as well. I use Resolve to open up the raw clips and render them out as lower quality proxies, which I can use to edit inside Adobe Premiere Pro CC. When I'm satisfied with my edit, I export an XML and import it into Resolve, having the program automatically relink the original raw clips based on the proxies. Now, I must confess, when I first saw the images coming out of the Blackmagic Cinema camera, I was a little bit stunned. Even shooting in log, the images fresh off the drive were beautiful. I usually shoot studio work under tungsten balanced light, but shooting under the Ikan daylight balanced LEDs created this extra punch to my image, a fuller, richer palette of colors. Even though the camera was recording in log color, the attention I guess I paid to the color and lighting on set meant that I didn't have that much to do in Resolve, just fine-tune the image a little bit. So I started off with first step color correction, bringing up the gamma and the gain in the primary tab to make my images feel a little bit lighter. Next, I wanted to punch up the red, green, blue parts of my image. I created a new node and used a qualifier to select only the blue parts of the frame, and I upped those saturation. Now, since I only wanted the blue towel to pop and not the backdrop, I added a window mask to isolate just the bottom part of the frame where the towel was. Then I did the same thing, adding another node, this time focusing on red, especially that red hat, which looks a little bit faded. Using the qualifier, I tried to find just the red hat and darkened and increased that saturation. Then it was another corrector node, this time focusing just on the greens, adding a little bit more green in the primary and taking out some of the red from the green parts of the frame. With the colors now punched up to my satisfaction, I wanted to add a little bit of softness to the highlights, adding another color correcting node and using qualifiers to find the bright parts of the images. Blur and pulled back the transparency to taste. Finally, I added one last node to do just a little bit of relighting. I created a circular window and placed it around her body. Then using the automated tracker, and this part always blows my mind, Resolve actually tracks the camera movement and moves the window so it corresponds with the camera movement. How cool is that? By having made strong color choices ahead of time, using Blackmagic Design Cinema Camera and its flexible RAW recording format, lighting with Ikan's color temperature adjustable lights and setting them to 5600 Kelvin, and then fine-tuning with a powerful program like DaVinci Resolve, I was able to create a bold, colorful scene right inside my studio that I am incredibly proud of. Color is an extremely important and extremely nuanced part of modern filmmaking. We've only begun to touch on the major topics of how color relates to filmmaking and how to manipulate color both in the art direction and in the post-production stage. Now, as you become more skilled in the craft, you will begin to see how every decision in the filmmaking process carries with it its own baggage, both positive and negative. Every choice has an impact on your final film. Even if you don't have huge budgets for precise art direction and custom-made wardrobe, you still have to pay attention to the details of what you're capturing on set. It can be as simple as choosing the red folder over the blue one. Just because modern tools give us flexibility in post, it's not an excuse for lazy filmmaking. Think and plan for color, and then let these fantastic tools take you the rest of the way. Go out there, make something great. I'm John Hess, and I'll see you at filmmakeriq.com.